Whitney.
Jack.
Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
When I say the word influencer,
oh boy,
what's the first thing?
That's a loaded word.
It is.
Yeah, it's a loaded word.
We're starting off.
I can feel. See, I'm learning this through therapy. I feel like myself kind of backing away.
Don't back away. We need you close to the microphone.
Okay.
What's the word influencer? What's the first thing you think about?
Honestly, ick.
Okay. Why?
Ick. And that is a self-projection. I mean, we had that conversation. Was that on camera before?
Yep.
Okay. We had that brief conversation about my history. I think this industry has created such incredible opportunities for so many people and changed so many people's lives. And I've said this 7 years ago as a bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, like 23, 4-year-old kid. There are so many ups and so many opportunities and advantages of this influencer world, like whatever you want to call it, TikTokers, whatever. And I think it would be really lovely. And this permeates into a lot of different industries, not just this particular industry. If we saw a little bit more of maybe the darkness behind it, so people had a bit more idea of what it is that they're actually signing up for. Because I think, sitting here as someone in my 30s now, I'm a lot more aware and alert of the reality of what's going on. I think when you're in your early 20s, as a lot of people maybe when they're kind of feeling out, what if I go into this world of being an influencer? I think there's just a lot of cases where people can get taken advantage of. And that's probably the part of it where I have this natural reaction to be like, ugh.
Why do you think, like, when you become an influencer, it's only the good stuff that you put out there? Like you said, it's like no one shows that dark side. No one sees behind the scenes. It's only the things that you, like, as the influencer, it's only the things that you want people to see. Like, why do you think that is?
Well, I mean, I think now more and more people choose to be and feel more comfortable to share themselves more fully and truly and transparently, more and more, much more so.
Do you think that's an age thing, or is that an at the moment thing?
I think it's both. I think societally it's more acceptable to almost be polarizing in a way. Like we're in a place in society where things are a little bit extreme. Like you're either perfect or you're imperfect, and it almost feels like we're trying to figure out what a healthy balance of in between is. And I think at the same time, with age, at least I can only speak for myself, you get into a place where you are a bit more comfortable in your skin and you're not afraid to say how you feel. And I think when you're in your 20s, you don't have that sense of self-assurance. And if you don't have the right support system around you to back you up, then that's when things can become a bit dangerous or less than ideal, when you're in a position of being taken advantage of. And at the end of the day, we live in a capitalist society, so we can't ignore that. And I think a lot of your question was, why do we not see the darker side? And a lot of that darker side is contractual, it's monetary, and you don't, as the person on the other side of that contract, you don't get as many says. You don't really get to speak your voice. And I think if you look at someone like Taylor Swift, whose father is a lawyer and came from a background of knowing how to fight for their child, a lot of us aren't in that position where we know how to fight for what's right and wrong. And I think if you look at, so I'm not a Swiftie, so I could be completely wrong, but based on what I know, she had that support system around her that allowed her to define who she was and how her career was built up. And then you look at a lot of, say, other celebrities who might not have that, like Britney Spears. Again, I'm not a big musical celebrity person, but if you look at the support system she had or lack thereof and you look at her outcome, does that kind of make sense?
It does. Yeah. So the word influencer, when I hear it, I think about like, what are you trying to influence?
Mm-hmm.
Where I feel like a lot of people just go, well, I just want to make reels and be famous. And it's like, well, but then what are you influencing then? So like, I guess looking at your previous influencer life and then what you're going to transition into
maybe
after this.
potentially.
Like, what were you influencing back then and how's that different now?
That's a great question. And I think maybe a lot of younger audiences might benefit from this answer is, I think when you're younger and you have all the time in the world and you want to explore everything, which you should, you absolutely should. I think sometimes life can feel a bit less purpose-driven. And so you try things and some things stick and some things don't. And I think that is totally okay. And it's all part of growing up. We only learn from our mistakes and we only learn from trying and failing and trying and succeeding. I think when you get to a place where you're much more intentional about your life and you understand that maybe your purpose is about acts of service, or even if it's about, for a lot of people, it is about money at the end of the day. And as ugly of a word as it is, I feel like people should be honest about that. There are, without a doubt, I feel like I've met all kinds of people, and for a lot of people, it is about the fame or it's about the money, and much less so, it's about the act of service. There's nothing wrong with that. I think if you can admit that to yourself, like, power to you. But I definitely think as I'm getting a bit older and I've gone through different experiences, I'm learning what motivates me to want to do something like this. The mistakes that I've made and the lessons that I've learned. Do people need to be making those same mistakes? Probably not. Like, I wish I had. And you know what? I am so thankful that I did have some older female friends in my life who I did get to watch their path and some of the mistakes that they made and some of the incredible opportunities that they've had and things that they've achieved in their life. And I'm so thankful that I got to have such a broad perspective, and it would be incredible to be able to influence others to maybe help them sharpen their focus in ways that I didn't have in my 20s, or maybe lead them off paths that those of us in our 30s have walked down and realized, maybe that wasn't the right path to take. I don't know if that relates or resonates with you.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Definitely. Just like you said, in your early 20s, mid 20s, you're just out there doing without really thinking about any consequence or purpose. So, yeah, I just always wonder whether I would listen, like, if I could go back in time and give my 25-year-old self some advice, would that 25-year-old Jack actually listen to me? Or would he just, shut up, old dude?
Yep.
What do you know?
That's a great point.
So, yeah, if you had to, I guess, I don't know, it's hard because I'm trying to do it now, but like, how would you communicate to that younger version of yourself that's going through that period of just out there doing? Like, how would you sharpen that focus for that person?
I think you hit the nail on the head where would I listen is the thing. And I think that's a great question. And you can see me pondering on this, right? Like, would I actually listen? I think that is a great point. I think you reach a point, at least I did, in my later 20s where I realized, hey, maybe I don't know it all. And probably a lot of people could relate to that. You get over, not fully over, but you get into the place where you're like, let me park my ego aside for a second and let me hear and absorb a bit more. Let me observe a bit more. And I went through that phase where all I wanted to do was observe. In my probably like from 25, 26 onwards, I just wanted to observe, to absorb everything that I possibly could. And it was so transformational. And I think I got so much out of the podcasters of the world at that time. And like, some of them now are the leading podcasters in the world. And I always think back to, wow, if I hadn't just stumbled onto these paths, I wonder where my life would be right now. So as much as I think, oh, would I listen to myself? Probably not. But did I listen to the plethora of these other resources who had taken steps ahead of me, who had built a life that I could foresee for myself, or had accomplished certain goals that I want to accomplish? Would I listen? Hell yeah, did I listen? So I think that in itself is very motivating.
If you had a room of 100 people sitting there, you're up on stage, what would you say to them?
Oh, Jack, these questions. I needed like a rehearsal. You're coming in hard with these questions. If I was in a room with
it's all going to come back to starting a podcast and how to think about it and all that sort of stuff. So I assume, because you got some questions about starting a podcast, so all my questions to you are going to come back around like that. So you got 100 people there. Okay. What are you going to say?
Take this with a grain of salt and always do what intuitively feels right to you, because no one else will know where you are in life and the experiences that you have lived, regardless of how much conviction someone can come across as having as to how you should live your life. Always think back and really feel intuitively what is right for you. And I think, you know, like you said, we do life without stopping to think about life. To 100 people in a room, I would say, don't sweat the small stuff. As cheesy as that sounds, you're not going to remember why you were annoyed for 2 days in 10 years' time, right? You're not going to remember those small moments of panic, of stress, of worry. Like, there is a whole life ahead of you to live. And if you keep focusing on these little moments of stress and panic and worry, then you're missing the point. Like, you're entirely missing the point that in life, we are just collecting data and we're collecting moments, fleeting moments of joy. Be present in those fleeting moments of joy and learn from those moments of, I don't like to use the word negativity, so maybe the less joyful moments. Sit in those feelings, and that is a whole different podcast of a topic. Sit in those feelings. What are you learning from those feelings and why are you running from them? And then let it go, right? Life is too short to be focused on the plethora, millions of reasons why we should focus on this isn't great and today I feel awful and this isn't going my way. But what about all the incredible things, like the glass half full? Like, what if we accomplish this? What if we meet this person? Like,
so 100% agree.
Yep.
And that's like, you're probably angry at something last week that you can't even remember what you're angry at now. You just remember being angry. Can't even remember what caused it to be angry. But in those times, it feels very, like you feel big. like it matters a lot. So for you, how do you get over those little moments?
I don't know if I'm the best person to be giving advice on that. So this is purely my opinion at this point.
That's why I asked.
Okay. Well, I don't know if you saw 2 days ago, I had a complete meltdown. Did you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a complete meltdown. That was a big feelings moment for me. And I'm going through a process of healing, of learning about myself at, how old am I now? 31. I forget. Like, you get so old that you forget.
You stop counting after 30.
Yeah, you stop counting after 30. And I'm going through this process of learning with my therapist about, what feelings are, how they impact you. And I'm sure a lot of people, maybe in our age range, will go through this. And you'd be lucky to go through it. Because if you don't go through it now, you're just kicking the can down for later. And
so a couple of days ago, you had your breakdown. How do you come back from that?
How do you come back from that?
Again, what's your process?
What's my process? Okay.
Not saying that it's right or wrong, but
my therapist and I are currently working through building a toolkit and a repertoire that is bigger than what my current process is. I have a tendency to really be able to shrug off the small stuff, to be resilient mentally, emotionally, to just, it's fine. It doesn't bother me. I can intellectualize my way through any problem logically. That's what I do. That's what I've been conditioned to do my whole life. It's why I work in the certain industry that I work in. It works from a professional and potentially even an interpersonal perspective. But when you're so disconnected from your feelings and you can compartmentalize what you think from what you feel, is that healthy? There's not a yes or no. Let's just park it at, there are pros and cons to everything.
Yeah.
So what I do, I'm great at, you can say anything about me. You can assume anything about me. Does it bother me? No. But if I sit there long enough in my feelings, as my therapist is teaching me to, does it bother me? Yeah. And I'm learning it's okay. I don't need to run from it. I don't need to intellectualize my way through it. I don't need to do wild workouts. I don't need to set unattainable goals for myself. I don't need, it's great. Like, it's great that I do those things. Do I need to continuously do that to prove myself? No. And that's okay too. And that's the process that I'm learning to go through at the moment.
Yeah. I think that's, again, you say it's just your process, but it's good for people to hear, because everybody's so afraid of their emotions and feeling those emotions. And as soon as we start feeling something, you jump on Instagram or TikTok and just ignore those and fill your emotions with something else or distract it. But like you said, you just end up kicking the can down the road till eventually something...
Gotta face it.
Yeah. You got to face it, or it just blows up in your face.
So 2 days ago, had my meltdown. Lasted 2 days, which is a long time. Like, to be in a place of utter anxiety and panic over something that really doesn't really matter all that much. How do you work through it? I mean, the bigger picture in life is important. I think if you have a purpose and you understand your goals and where you're going, you recognize that the ups and downs are all part of it. Sitting through it is really, really hard. You sit through it, and if you absolutely have to, you use the tools in your toolkit that you know, which mine currently are going for runs, playing tennis, like all things that we think are healthy. But I think if they're the only tools you use to exert your stress or anxiety or whatever it is, then that might, you might want to reflect on that. But I think building up resilience, if I could tell my 20-year-old self, what's the one skill you should work on in the next, 10 years, is building up your resilience emotionally, mentally, physically, physiologically.
How?
How for me, or how for people in general? Because we're all different.
How for you?
How for me? Well, for me, I really needed to prove to myself that I could be who I wanted, do what I wanted, have control over myself. For whatever reasons, those are unique for me, so it won't apply to everyone. And I think over time you realize, hey, you stack up all these little habits, these little goals of proving to yourself, I can do this. I don't need anyone else to tell me, or anyone else's validation to prove that I can do this. Like, I've got this. Like, I went from really needing validation, external validation, probably why I became an influencer at 20, not really like putting all the dots together, but you get all of this external validation. And then you learn, hey, like, I've got this. I'll do little things. Like, I'll go run a marathon. I'll go do 100 sessions of Barry's classes. I'll start a whole new career that I never thought I could attempt. I never thought I'd be successful at. And then you start to prove to yourself, hey, like, I've got me. I've got myself. And granted, there are going to be moments where you start to question yourself again, but then you remind yourself of your track record. I think that's super, super important. Just reminding yourself it's 2 steps forward, 5 steps forward, but also a step back every so often is okay, and you don't have to beat yourself up, and you don't have to live in this cycle or habit loop of shame and guilt and worry. These are big loaded questions, Jack.
Yeah, they are. And I like how it always, like, a lot of the time it comes back to moving your body. Like, I just think people underestimate just going out and moving your body, whether it's a walk, playing tennis, smashing a class. It helps you process things, think about things, burn off energy, all that sort of stuff. So, all right. So you reached out. You wanted to learn how to podcast.
Yes.
And this episode, I figured you want to learn how to podcast. And like I said to you before this, like I don't know what it is at the moment, but a lot of people want to start podcasting. So I figured it'd be a good idea to get you on, do a podcast about learning how to podcast. And all the questions I just asked, I think everybody out there listening should ponder. Like, you know, what do you think about when you think about influencing? Because if you're starting a podcast, you're going to be influencing people. And I think it's very important to have that purpose and that why and what you're trying to influence behind you when you start thinking about talking to anybody, where it's one person or 100 people in the room. You've got to have that purpose and like understand what you're trying to influence before you get started. So I appreciate your answers. They were loaded, but again, it's these things you need to think about, because this isn't easy, podcasting. Sometimes you'll do it and you feel like there's one person in the room, and sometimes you feel like there's 1,000 people in the room. And when there's only that one person, it's hard to continue, but you've got to act like there's 1,000 people listening, because at the end of the day, you don't know. Like, yeah, you get all the stats and all that sort of stuff, but you don't know how many people are actually listening. Although they are playing through the video, are they listening? And what are they listening to?
You know, that's a great point. And it does, and this goes back to how I mentioned earlier, sometimes it's very clear the intentions of why people do certain things. And I think it's so, at least for me, I think it's so important that if you have a certain intention of coming from a place of being of service, does it matter if it's 1 million? Like, sure, it's great if it's 1 million people, but if you're changing one life, is that any less meaningful?
No, definitely not. And like I've said this in the past, like I do this to change the world, but that world is up to one person. So if you change one person's view of that world, you've changed the world. So one person does matter.
I love that.
You got questions there?
I do. All right. So, I mean, we briefly discussed this a little bit earlier, but to put it formally, what motivated you to start to put yourself out there?
I think like you, I loved podcasts. So I found podcasting, I guess, in a time when I felt lost, and I started listening to podcasts, and I was like, oh, this is amazing. I can listen to all these well-knowledged, like, just well-rounded people from around the world, and I can be in the same room as them and listen and learn and develop myself. So I appreciated that a lot. So when COVID hit, and you know, pretty much every fitness person was almost forced to go online anyway, started the podcast off as just a way to stay connected to people, but also, you know, everybody's got questions about health and fitness. So it started off, you know, you got a question about sleep, talk about sleep for half an hour. So when a client comes on and they're like, oh, I'm struggling with my sleep, I can say, here's everything you need to know. Go listen to this episode about sleep. And the more I did it, the more I found I like to talk to people, learn about people, enjoy conversations. So, yeah, I think it started off as a way to pay back to podcasting, and then it's continued as a love for podcasting.
That's a great response. How much of what you do is about the connection with other humans? Because obviously, you know, there is the technical side, which is you educating others on health, on well-being, whether that's physically or mentally or emotionally. How much of the connection means a lot to you? maybe that's not the way to word it. How impactful is the connection part of it as opposed to, or in addition to, the education part of it?
Yeah, I think it comes back down to that, what we were talking about before, like, is anybody listening? Like, that connection is hard when you feel like no one's listening. So that's when you fall back on, like, here's a topic that people are struggling with that's going to connect me with more people. So it's not always, like, that connection's not always there. So you've got to just work with what you got. Like, there's some days where I don't want to do this at all. Like, so I try and find that connection in those, ways to help people. So again, it comes back to, what am I influencing?
That almost sounds like the connection with yourself as opposed to the connection with others, which that's an interesting perspective. Because I suppose as someone who has never delved into this realm, you think about the connection that you have with, say, your clients or the people that you're connecting with online, the lives you're transforming, and then you think about the connection with yourself, which is what keeps you motivated to do this, right? So in terms of the connection that you have or that you're fostering with other people, like, what are some of the areas that have caught you by surprise? Like, how have people caught you by surprise? What is something that has caught you by surprise that you didn't anticipate to have through making these connections?
Friends, as basic as that is. Yeah, like, when people listen to the podcast, you don't know they're listening. So again, you put this out there, you hope people listen, and then when somebody's listening and they get to know you, and then they're like, oh yeah, I listened to this, and they actually listen, so you can have a conversation about a conversation you've already had. That gives you the connection to people. I don't know if that's sort of answering your question, but yeah.
Is it almost, it almost feels like to me that it attracts people who might share a same view or perspective on life, and that might feel a bit more comforting than, because this and this might be a bit deep for talking about how we start a podcast, but it almost feels like the lack of deep connection we have with other human beings, because a lot of the times our interpersonal relationships do feel transient these days. It's a like on social media. It's a quick scroll of TikTok. I don't use TikTok, so I don't know if you scroll TikTok or not. But it is very transient and it's very surface level. Do you feel that through this process you've been able to connect with people that you might have a deeper understanding of?
Yeah, definitely. As people, humans, we rely on storytelling, but like you said, storytelling has almost stopped because of social media and all that sort of stuff. And I think people should be sharing their stories. So whether I'm trying to share a story about sleep or, how to create purpose in life or chase a passion or whatever it is, telling a story matters. And the more people are doing it, the more people share their stories. So again, humans have survived for so long because, back in the day, in the hunter-gatherer days, the guys would go out hunting, they'd learn something, come back and tell a story about that hunt. So the next time they do it, they know what or what not to do. So then, like us talking about influencing, starting a podcast, all that sort of stuff, like we're just talking about it, but also we're talking about our experience of going out there and doing it, bringing it back, and then other people can learn from it and then go and try it themselves. And then they go and do it, have their stories and continue that way. So I don't even know if I answered your question right.
I think what you are sharing with me is absolutely the incredible side of connection and having social media as a tool. I'm interested to hear your perspective on how sometimes we can silo ourselves, because you can connect with an incredible group of human beings and share the same mindset and perspective. But there's also a healthy balance between the echo chamber of just the same opinions over and over again. How have you found that that's impacted your beliefs?
Yeah, and I'm very wary of that, especially within the health and fitness industry, because like trends are very powerful, and you can jump on trends and get caught up in that trend or echo chamber and not really ignore everything else. So I've been doing this long enough to try and be mindful of all of that. I'm definitely not perfect at it.
Do you have an example that you feel comfortable to share and have learned from?
Don't know. It's a good question.
I'll let you sit on that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'll come back to that.
Okay. What did you find challenging when you first delved into the realm of learning to start a podcast or a YouTube channel? And what do you find challenging now, having done it for about 2 years now?
I think the hardest thing is just starting.
Mm-hmm.
I love the whole business side of things. I really enjoy the numbers, the growth, the technical side of things. I love technology, so I love cameras, microphones, all that sort of stuff. So all that sort of stuff was good for me. Like, it's definitely hard. Like, when you're starting out, you don't know what you're doing. You do some episodes and they're absolutely shit. Like, you sound terrible. Like, you think you're giving good information and it just ends up being terrible. Mm-hmm. But I think it's just a matter of just doing it and then seeing what happens. Because, again, coming back to maybe that other question, what you think is good doesn't necessarily mean everybody else thinks it's good. 100%. So you might do a shit episode, but it hits everybody else just perfectly. So I think that's hard to learn, because a lot of us go for perfection and it needs to be perfect. I was actually having a conversation about this with another person that reached out about podcasting, and she's like, I need to do this, this and this. And I'm like, no, you just need to start.
You just need the MVP. The minimum viable product.
Exactly.
Put it out there.
Exactly.
Get some A/B testing.
Yep. But that in itself is the hard part of letting go of that perfection and just putting out content. Not every episode's going to be great. And I'm up to, this will be 230, this episode. And I feel like I'm still at episode 1. So I still feel like every episode I'm learning.
Yep.
I'm trying to get better. As long as you're trying to improve on the last episode, it's going to get better. Like you said, you might take 10 steps forwards, but every now and then you can take 1 or 2 back. So that's in every aspect of life, including podcasting. So it's just a matter of just putting it out there and doing it. And I think that's been the hardest lesson, to just do that without it having to be perfect, or it needs to be exactly what I thought the episode was going to be like. So this episode was meant to be all about podcasting, but we've been talking about a lot more deeper things because I think that's more beneficial. But it's definitely not how I thought this podcast would go. But I think it's still going to be vibing with everybody, if everybody's still here listening. So again, it's just letting go of that perfection and just moving forwards. And after 230 episodes, I'm very good at just saying, hey, that was a conversation, put it out there, see what people think.
Do you have a gut feeling of when you feel like something is going to be well received?
All the time. But then sometimes you put it out there and then it's not. So, but I think, again, that's the hard part of letting go of that expectation and that gut feeling and just doing the best you can and putting it out there. Because when you start holding on to that and going, oh, that was the best episode, and you put it out there and there's crickets.
Disappointment, yep.
But then sometimes an episode will get a bunch of views or hundreds of listens, downloads, whatever you want to call it, but I hear nothing back. But then others will get minimal, but I'll hear a lot back. So again, and that's just the lessons you learn over time of just put it out there and see what happens.
You see, what I'm hearing is when there's an ego attached, this realm might present itself to be challenging to people who do have an ego attached to it. And maybe the lesson that you have learned is that let's put the ego aside.
Yeah, maybe. This has been something that I've been thinking about for myself, like over the last couple of months. I think ego is good, but just put in the right, using that energy in the right way. Like my ego is, I want to put an episode out every week. Like no one's going to stop me. Like I want to be the best I possibly can, and this is what I want to do. And that is my ego talking. Like I want this to be the best fucking podcast ever.
And that comes from a place of positivity.
Yeah. So where if you use that ego to be better than the other podcaster out there and you're trying to get better numbers than him, then that might not be the best direction for that ego. So I think understanding yourself and making sure that you're pointing that ego in the right direction is powerful. But again, it's probably something you're going to learn over time.
And I think for a lot of people out there who are thinking about starting a podcast, myself included, can you describe the feelings that you felt when you first started to recognize, hey, this feels like rejection? The content that I'm putting so much effort into feels like it's not being received, as opposed to now 230 episodes later, how you feel now.
Yeah.
I think that contrast would be really beneficial for people who have never been in this world before.
Yeah. Looking back, again, if I could give that Jack that first started the podcast advice, just no one's listening, so no one cares. Like, it's going to take at least 50 episodes for people to start actually paying attention and listening. So that's good and bad. Like, it's a power because you can stuff it up a lot and it doesn't matter. But in the time, it feels shit because you're putting out episodes, like your first 10 episodes, no one's going to listen to, and you do feel rejected. But again, it's just something, again, what are you coming back, like that question, like what is an influencer? What are you influencing? And like, it sucks that no one's listening, but it's that time that where you can get better at influencing. So you've just got to stick with it and just say, I'm going to put an episode out every week, once a month, whatever's feasible for you, like you and everybody listening, like what's achievable for you to do. And just say, that's what I'm going to do. Just like working out. Like if you have a certain goal or you want to be healthy, you know you need to work out a certain amount of times, you need to do a certain amount of steps, you need to drink water. So that's just what you go and do. It's no different to podcasting to start with.
You're not going to see the result on the day.
Or the next 100 days.
Or even a year later.
Yeah.
Well, by a year, you'd like to hope so.
So, yeah, all I'd say is just, if you want to start, just start and just be mindful of, you know, what is actual feasible, because people will go out all excited, and people do this with workouts as well. Oops, sorry, probably blocking that camera. Like when somebody's signing up to a gym, they're really excited. They go in 5 days a week, absolutely go hard, and then they can't move because their body's so sore. And that's not feasible. So you're better off just going in every second day or every third day, figure out what's feasible for you, and then start with that. And there's been periods where I've tried to do 3 shows a week, and it's just too much. I can't do it. Like because I don't make money from this. Like, so I can't spend all my time and effort into this because, you know, I need to live and make money. So 3 was too much, and then I'm like, 2 maybe, and even 2 was too much. But I know 1 a week I can do. I can get that done. I can make the reels. But again, that's only because I've been doing this for so long, and the editing is really quick for me now. Doing the whole process of pumping it out through social media, that's all quick for me now. So I've just learnt over that time to make it fast, easy. But I know 1 a week's feasible for me.
How long did it take you to kind of figure out your groove? And at what point do you say to yourself, okay, I'm trying this. I have tried this for an X amount of time. Let's pivot. Because I think a lot of people, and maybe this goes back to perfection, is we keep trying and trying and trying, looking for a different outcome. But maybe the issue is not for the lack of trying?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good question. Real good. And I don't know. I still struggle with that. Like, is this actually working? Do I need to change direction? I think in regards to podcasting, I'd say try not to niche too much. Like, everybody talks about niches, and this is probably just a lesson from me thinking back, but there's only so many times you can talk about fat loss. Like, the principles for fat loss are very simple. Like, exercise more, eat less. There's obviously a few caveats in there that you need to work on individually, but the principle's the same. So there's only so many podcasts I can do about that, and health and fitness and that sort of stuff. So that's why I'm branching out a lot more recently, getting a lot more guests on, different opinions, all that sort of stuff, because like you can get stuck, especially if you niche. And I feel like a lot of people will niche, and it might be a good place to start. If you're starting off with your podcast, if you have a niche and you know a lot about this one subject, you can start there, but don't be tied to it, because you're going to get bored. And if you're bored with the subject, the listeners are going to know that and feel that. So I feel like when you're bored, you know it's time to pivot.
That's a great point. And on the point of, I suppose, content, do you have a strategy for figuring out the content that you want to put out and the content that's trending and what people want to see?
Yeah, so I'm terrible at trends and all that sort of stuff. I know you can get a lot further, and I get a lot of people reaching out to me because my numbers aren't the biggest on YouTube and all that sort of stuff. So people are like, I can help you find these trends and we can do videos about this.
Really?
Yeah. But you'll
for
get
later. Can we delve into that? I'm interested.
Yeah. So, but again, it comes back to like, what do I want to influence, and what do I want to talk about, and who do I want to talk to, and who do I want to push that message out to? And if I was to follow the trends, the numbers, like some episodes really hit well because we talk about certain subjects. Like this probably will go well because I can put social media in the title or how to podcast in the title. So it's going to move well. A lot of people are going to listen. But if I was to do that every single week, I'd get bored.
It becomes repetitive.
So yes, you can jump on the trends, but then like, again, what are you influencing? Are you trying to influence that trend? Or are you, like, I don't really care about trends. Like I care about people living healthy, happy lives, and that isn't a trend. So I can't really jump on any, but you can to get more views, more subscribers, all that sort of stuff. So I think it just comes down to what your goal is and what you're influencing. So if you want to do that, 100% go for it, but that's just not what I do.
Thank you for that perspective. I think we've discussed the creative side of things, like what kind of content you want to put out there. From a technical and social perspective, what have you found surprising in good or bad or less good ways? And what have you found challenging?
Technical, audio matters. Like this is a podcast, so it's audio. I'll put it on YouTube, but at the end of the day, audio matters. So focus on the audio. We spoke about this when we first come into this room. This room is acoustic pleasing. So when I clap, there's no echo, which means it's good for podcasting or good for audio. So there's no reverb bouncing around, so the microphones pick it up well. But again, in saying that, when you're first starting out, no one's listening, so don't stress about...
Good reminder.
This setup here is, a lot of money, and I wouldn't recommend people go and start with a lot of money because you might get 10 episodes in and go, this is shit, I don't want to do it. So start with something cheap. I started off with a $100 microphone, Blue Ice, I think it was called, off Amazon, and recording on my phone, and that's all you need to start with. I find the visual challenging, like trying to set up the right camera angles. Again, it sucks when I get a good guest on and the camera angle's just not right, and then it doesn't really hit with the reels on social media.
Oh.
So
okay.
Yeah. So I find that hard.
Can you elaborate on that a bit further for those of us who
Yeah, so
don't really understand.
I've got I've got my phone set up on you recording. So it looks good. Looks good for YouTube. But when I go to chop that for reels and stuff like that, it might not turn up that well. And like, it's hard because, again, got to let go of that perfection. Like, what you're talking about is really good in the clip, but it might not look that well. So I find that hard. And like, this is where a crew would come in handy, because like big podcasters will have people like doing all that sort of stuff.
Like a whole production
team.
So,
but at the moment, like, I'm worrying about, like, is this still recording? Is that still recording? That's not recording. This is recording. Like, and still trying to have the conversation. So that's hard. So a lot of the time I just try and set it up the best I can, let go of the perfection and just have a good conversation. Because I know the audio is always going to be there, because this is a good audio setup.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Things to consider. On that note, do you want to check everything and take a pause and check everything?
No, we're good.
We're good? Okay. What is something, and we've actually discussed quite a few topics now, but what is something top of mind that people who aren't familiar to this world, or being an influencer or podcaster, or just being front facing, what's something unexpected that you'd like to share? And it might not even be related to like the technical or the content side of it. It's just something that caught you off guard.
I think we spoke about this when we were talking about going out on dates and all that sort of stuff. Like, it puts a mirror up to you. Like, it's very confronting looking at yourself in the, like, looking back over and editing, listening, all that sort of stuff. So it does put a mirror up to yourself, because you're putting yourself out there and you're always worried about all that sort of, you know, what are people thinking and all that sort of stuff. But again, over time, it gives you that sense of, like, you just let go of that, and it gives you that sense of it doesn't matter. Like, and what I didn't expect at the start of this whole podcasting journey, and now, like, it's just created me, like, it's given me, how do I say this? More belief in myself, if that makes sense. Like, but just more in the sense of, like, all these little things of, like, me not saying the right words, or me not looking right, or, you know, my hair's out, or that sort of stuff. Like, it just, because all that stuff doesn't matter, you have more confidence.
The 1,000 little flaws that we only see in ourselves because we're our own worst critic. Yeah,
so that's probably the biggest thing reflecting over all the episodes I've done, is like just that self-confidence I've got from this. Like, I wouldn't have thought that would be a byproduct of doing podcasts. So that's probably one thing.
That's incredible to hear. I think in terms of, and you're right, I think whenever we try something new in life, it becomes a mirror held up to us, and you either run away from it or you confront it, and you become a version of yourself that you never anticipated. And I think when you let go of that fear of rejection or shame or guilt, you're opening a path of holistic growth, of just being fearless. I think the word being fearless is so important when it comes to anything front facing, because everything, I mean, so we are confronted in life with so many scary things, but to put yourself out there, to constantly be critiqued almost. And you know what I want to add? I think we'll constantly be critiqued, because this time round I'm embracing putting myself on a public platform in a very different way to say in the past. And you know what I've noticed? People want to support you. People are incredible. And I think when you embrace life with a certain vibration or energy or frequency or whatever woo-woo term you want to label it, that is what the universe will attract back for you. And I found this experience to be so fulfilling and wholesome, because it really has shown me how incredible human beings can be. And I think that also comes down to the perspective and the lens that you want to see others in.
But it can also show you the bad side of humanity as well. But that's also good. Like, I think you've just got to look at it from that lens of, you know, things are awesome. Although there's bad people out there, bad stuff out there, things like it's still awesome. And so you can sort of just accept those bad things for those bad things as well.
If someone had to ask you an advice on how you just accept those bad things for what they are, what would you say to them?
Look, it's easier said than done. I think, like, again, probably the first couple of questions I asked you, it's just more about just sitting in it, accepting it, probably just taking a breath and not reacting would probably be my answer. Like, probably another way, like, trying to improve my communication skills, my interviewing skills, is not being reactional. Like, if you say something that I completely disagree with, doesn't mean it's wrong. And if I react at you, like, it's going to stop you from talking and speaking your mind. So I guess just a byproduct of, again, podcasting and learning how to talk to people is just not being reactive. And just because you hear something bad and something you disagree with doesn't mean you have to react to it. You can sit here, listen, accept, and just take a breath. And if you feel like you need to say something, but you don't have to.
Did you find throughout this process of interviewing other people, meeting and being exposed to all kinds of people, that you've learned to be more accepting and open and almost have a bit more empathy that human beings, we're all just trying our best?
Yeah, I think that may have come from what I do, like PTing as well, because people come to you in a very vulnerable state, wanting to improve themselves, and it's hard to say, I need help to do that. So I think my acceptance of all that probably comes from that side of things, but it obviously definitely helps with the podcasting. So I'd say PT is almost like a non-mic'd up version of a podcasting session, but you're working out. And I did dabble, like I try and do that every now and then with certain people, like do a mic'd up workout, because different things come out. Like put a mic on me, mic on the guest, do a workout, just different things come up. You think about different things because you are moving your body and doing different things. So it's also a good way to communicate. So I think it probably comes more from that sort of thing.
All right. So, Jack, if you were starting from scratch in 2025, what would you do differently?
That's a good question. So it's hard because, like, if I went back, I would have invested in better microphones straight away, even though I said not to do that.
Okay, that's good to know.
But I knew that this is what I was going to do. Like, I was going to put out an episode every week for 50 weeks, like 50 episodes, no matter what. So I feel like I would have learnt a lot more, a lot faster if I had better equipment instead of starting with the cheap one, learning how that works and then upgrading to that. But again, I started this 3 years ago, and like equipment has changed a lot. Cameras have changed a lot. So it's a lot easier to do it now. Like, it's a lot cheaper. Like, I guess the barrier entry is a lot easier now with better equipment. I would have got more guests on sooner as well. So I did get guests on to start with, but I was very intimidated to ask people to come on to the show because...
Why? And what changed?
Confidence. Like, my ability to... I just didn't believe in my abilities and have a conversation. Like, thinking back, I think the first guest I had was James, Dr. James. Thanks for coming on all those episodes ago. And I had to re-record it because I was so bad. Like, and I think that set me back a little bit. And again, me trying to be holding on to that perfection, I'm like, oh, I've just got to talk more to get better at it. And then I'll get a guest on when I can talk better. And a
lot of us get stuck in that loop.
Yeah, but I should have just let go of that. I'm like, okay, that was a bad interview on my behalf. James was great. He had a lot of good stories, but I just did a very bad job at it. I should have just got over that sooner and got the next guest on instead of waiting 10 episodes of me just talking to the camera, not getting any better at interviewing, me thinking that me talking to the camera is better improving myself, but I should have just got a guest on sooner.
Like ripping the Band-Aid off.
Yeah. So like comes back to what I was saying before, just let go of perfection and just get more, like, or whatever you're trying to podcast about, just do more of it sooner. So if I could go back and change things, I would have got more guests on sooner. But again, it was just a confidence thing. Unfortunately, that just happens with time.
Are there ways, say someone is not ready to rip that Band-Aid off for whatever reason, and there's no judgment because we're all just humans and we're all dealing with our own lived experiences. What are some little hacks to improve their confidence in the interim?
Talk to people. Whether you're in the lift, public transport, walking down the street, getting the coffee, in the cafe, you order a coffee, don't just say, I'll have a long black. Say, oh, hey, how are you going today? Try and spark, like, even if it's a 20-second conversation, 10-second, just try to create those little conversations. And sometimes it's daunting to just say to a random person, how's your day going? It is. But those little things will help you build confidence in getting a guest in and making them feel welcome enough to, relax and give a good conversation. Where if you're the podcaster, the interviewer, and you're nervous, straight away the guest is nervous.
You can feel the energy.
Yeah. So again, as woo-woo as it sounds, your energy you're giving off, they'll pick up on. So the more you can just practice little conversations here and there with random strangers, I think that goes a long way.
And I think, what do you have to lose? Exactly.
Like, if you're in a coffee shop standing next to somebody and they just go, and grunt at you, doesn't matter. You're never going to see them again. But you tried, so, yeah.
And I think what's interesting is, as I'm going through, and we discussed this briefly before, is interpersonal relationship skills. It permeates throughout all facets of our life, whether that is having a conversation with a stranger or making friends with colleagues or the world of dating, where it is probably the most daunting. What do you have to lose? And I think that's where so many of us get stuck, is we overthink these little fleeting moments. And I don't know if it's a female thing. We overthink and we overanalyze and the 1,000 outcomes instead of just saying, hey, and taking it from there.
Yeah.
And maybe sometimes it really is just as simple as, hey.
No, I don't think that's a female thing. I think guys do it as well, but they just don't talk about it. Yeah, like, I'm sure there's a lot of guys out there that just want to say hey to a girl or guy or, just a random stranger, just start a conversation, but they think, oh, what if they say this? But what if they don't? You've got nothing to lose.
If you had to think in the psyche of another human being, say both of us come from a place of what do you have to lose, but maybe not everyone comes from that place of what do you have to lose. For a lot of people who do think, I have a lot to lose. I have my dignity. I have a fear of rejection. What if they laugh at me? Let's not judge on someone's conditioning of their environment growing up. What's some advice you have for someone in that position?
Start as comfortable as possible. Like, if you're very shy and you don't want to go out there and get judged, there's probably somebody in your life that's not direct family or friends, that's just on the outside, that you have a little bit of a relationship with, that you could say, oh, hey, how's your day going? Just start with somebody a little bit more comfortable, a little bit closer to your circle, and then just work your way out. As you get comfortable with that circle, work out to the next one. Like, it might take about 20 conversations before you get to that random stranger in the cafe, but just start a little bit closer, a little bit more familiar. And it could even be like direct family. Like you might be that introverted or that closed off that you go to your mum or dad, brother, sister, best friend, and just start talking to them and just work your way from there.
Because I think in a world where, you know, so many of us live behind a screen for so much of our lives, it can become daunting.
I'd even say, like, going through a breakup, I closed myself off a fair bit, and I used social media to open myself up. So I probably seemed like a massive creep, but I was messaging a lot of people. Say I messaged 10 people, 2 people wrote back, but those 2 people that wrote back, I've actually created a pretty good relationship with. I'll probably never meet them because they're in different countries, but like we have a conversation. Like it can start there. So you can use things like social media to break that cycle and get yourself out there. Like again, it's for me, even in that time, it was scary sending a message saying to a complete stranger, "Hey, how's your day going?" But you know, there's even less consequences with that because you can't see their reaction. They might not write back, and that's fine. But you know, 1 or 2 that do, you can have a conversation, and then it's like, oh, people talk to me. And then it creates that little less barrier to go out to the next person and talk to them in person. So
what advice would you give to transfer the little bits of confidence that you build up through engaging through social media then to real life? Because the two are very different. The approaches are very different. To be sitting with someone, you get instant feedback, you see their expressions, you see their body language. It is a very different approach to, say, texting, putting your phone away, not really knowing what's going on, and then maybe getting feedback later.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard because again, like my job is very like in person with that personal relationship. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Do you find that there's more on the line to lose?
In person?
Yes.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, like you said, like there's that, I think we all have desire that connection with that person in front of us. So when that connection's not there or they deny that connection, it's like, you want that. Where if that's removed and you just do it on the phone, it doesn't really matter. And it's like on to the next. So,
in moments in person where the rejection might feel like a bigger feeling, how do you sit with that, or how do you process that?
Yeah, and like I think it's just okay. I guess it's come back to like, you know, confidence with the podcast, like confidence with myself. Like if you're confident with who you are and that person rejects that, that's okay. It's just not what they want. Whether it's a conversation, relationship, you know, whatever it is. Like if you're confident within yourself and they deny that, that's okay. It's just not what they want. And that's not a reflection on you being a bad person or them being a bad person. It's just people want different things. So again, it might be the vibe you're giving off and you're still learning how to have a conversation with somebody. So at the start, you've got to learn, you know, what your vibe is, and sometimes rejection helps with that, and just taking a step back and going, was that me? Was it them? What did I do wrong? What did they do wrong? But looking at it as a lens of how to improve instead of judgment, it's probably a good place to start as well.
So to have a curiosity for learning and improving, it definitely helps soften the blow. Yeah, I agree.
Take people on a journey.
Okay, so what is your process for researching and preparing for episodes? How has that adapted and evolved over time?
Good question. So back when I started this off as an informational podcast, so, you know, here's an episode about sleep. It was very structured, like, you know, this is what you do when you wake up, because waking up affects your sleep and all that sort of stuff. Here's what you do in the day. And it's like very structured, like a lecture. I've never been to university, but I hear a lot of uni students fall asleep during lectures.
Looking at one.
Yep. So trying not to make it sound like a lecture. So I've learnt how to communicate and interview people so it seems like I know what I'm talking about, but also trying to get them to just give their information without it seeming like a lecture. And that is definitely a skill you need to learn. It's like, again, if you go, like I was just saying, my first interview of James was terrible because I was trying to make it probably sound like a lecture when it should have just been a conversation rolling. So that's definitely a lesson you've got to learn. It depends on, like now, preparation depends on the guests. So if I have a doctor coming on midweek next week and he's written several books, like a lot of good information. So I want to know about that information beforehand. So I'll do a bit of research on him and the books, and like I probably won't read all his books, but I'll probably read, go over a review of books, like what's about, all that sort of stuff, just so I have a bit more of an insight. But I'll still go into that conversation acting like I know nothing, because it's the best way to get the information out of there, instead of saying, hey, you said this in this book, let's talk about that. Sort of almost goes back into that lecture. People like yourself, and then last week I had Ryan on. Like, we've had some conversations, but I didn't want to bring up, I don't send you the questions because I want it to flow, and I want to hear your opinion on those, so I can sort of evolve that into a conversation and go, oh, I didn't think about that, but what do you think about this? Like, so it just depends on who I have on. And again, that's just come with like me doing this enough to learn what works best, like what's my style, all that sort of stuff. So,
and do you get feedback from guests for what works for them, or how they feel like what worked really well or could be improved on?
Sometimes, yeah. I'll definitely say, hey, how was that for you? And what did they think? Some people don't give me feedback. Some people do. Some people just like, yeah, that was good. And I'm like, okay. What does that mean? But again, it's just like when you edit, you sort of look through it. Like, I'll generally listen to it as well. Like, what could I have done better? Like, if it was a bad interview or a bad recording or bad podcast, it's generally something I've done. So how can I improve on the next one? Preparation, just making sure, obviously, simple stuff like making sure everything's charged. Like, that's just, you should be doing that anyway. I like to get set up early, because like if you were like messaging me saying I'm out the front and I'm halfway setting up and I'm like, I get frustrated, and then you like, what's this guy doing? Like, because he's frustrated and the weird
energy.
vibe. Yep. So just, again, making sure you're prepared nice and early, in a good state of mind, like preparing your mind. Like, I've been ice bathing lately, so that just sort of snaps my mind out of whatever groove I'm in. It sort of resets my brain.
Love that.
And then I listen to music, and then I'm ready for the podcast. But again, that's just something I've figured out what works best for me, what works best for other people. I don't know. But yeah. So that's probably about it.
I think there's a lot of insight to take from that.
Yeah, and I'd just say, like, don't overthink it. Like, the more you overthink trying to do the best podcast ever, the more nervous you're going to be. So just try not to prepare too much, but just enough, and you'll probably learn that over time anyway, what works best for you.
And in terms of, and we've spoken about how following trends isn't your style, and I have so much respect for that. In terms of other content creators, what engages you? Like, what do you find, like this might be trendy or this might not be trendy, but what really captures your attention? And then how do you draw inspiration from that?
Yeah, so that's hard, especially on social media. Like, I try and find, if I watch a reel and I watch it start to finish and I'm like, I want to watch that again. I'm like, oh, why did I want to watch that again? What was in it? What was it? The visual? Was it the audio? Was it what they were talking about? So I try and do that when I get caught up on that. Like when I listen to a podcast, Like, and I'm like, oh, that was a good podcast, and I really liked it. And I'm like, oh, why did I like it? Was it the conversation? Like, was it the guest? What did they talk about? So I try and find things that I like. Sometimes, again, with social media, it's super hard because you just breeze straight through it and you're like, on to the next one. But yeah, like when you find something you like and it engages you, I try and emulate that or try it, see if I actually like doing it. And if I didn't like doing it, then I'll change it. So like if you're, I chop this up into little bits, like 30-second, 40-second reels for social media, and I see different ways of doing it. And when I edit it, I'm like, oh, I didn't actually like editing in that way. Or, when I watched it back, I didn't really like how it hit. Like, so you can sort of learn, try, and see if you like it. Yeah.
And that's in life in general too, right?
Yeah.
We're always just getting feedback from testing, trying. In terms of advertisement in social media, because that is big now these days. I mean, I can only speak on 7 years ago, which is a long time in the world of technology. What is that like now? Is it something that you have to engage in? Is it something that's been on your radar? Like, assume I know nothing.
I think advertising for me is like, on social media and all that sort of stuff, is like getting my first couple of guests on. Like, I know I need to do it. I've done it once or twice, and I know I need to keep doing it. But it's just that confidence of, like, if I pay to boost a post, I know that's going to get pushed out to everybody, like, 100,000 people, whatever. And that's just my insecurities of going, oh, am I ready for that? And it's the same as like when I was getting my first couple of guests on, I'm like, oh, I'm not ready for this. I'll wait. So
what's holding you back?
Good question. At the moment, I think I just don't have the capacity to have a massive influx of people. Like, I know it's just like I'm pushing this out and people listen to it if they want to or not. I kind of prefer the slow organic growth rather than the big boom of paying and advertising and all that sort of stuff. Because you do get a lot of messages through, like, and again, I appreciate everybody that listens, comments, likes, and then shares their feedback. Like, I appreciate a bunch, but it is a lot of messaging. So again, I'm not making money from this. So it's hard for me to, like, I still have clients I need to look after. I need to, like, follow up leads, contact leads, booking system, like, on my schedule for the work I do get paid for. So I feel like I'm at that weird point where I could be making more money from this, but to make more money from it, I need to put more time into it. And it's just like, I'm in that weird zone of, if I transition into podcasting a little bit more, yes, I'll make money from it, but it's not till later on down the track, if that makes sense. So I'm not ready to sacrifice my quality of life and the money I'm making to drop to then make money from this later on.
I understand. What do you feel like would be the catalyst for you to transition?
Don't know.
Do you have certain goals in mind?
I think, like, again, slow growth. I'm more than happy for slow growth. Like, I love doing this. I'm not going to stop doing it because of money. When I get to a point where this is making a little bit more money, I think that'll be the point where I can go, okay, like, I can jump into a little bit more, put a bit more effort into the social media, the advertising, all that sort of stuff. Maybe probably when I get to the point where I can pay somebody to help me do this, is where I think I'll jump into it more, because it does take a lot of time and effort. So to be able to go, okay, you're taking 50% of that, you go and do that. Yeah.
Do you set yourself, because I imagine being from a world of discipline, do you set yourself a structure for your goals and timelines for your goals?
I guess I have an overarching goal. Like, I want to make $1 million before I'm 40, but that's just like a goal.
Mm-hmm.
It's not necessarily I want to see $1 million in my bank account. It's more just to the point where like I'm financially free and money doesn't matter anymore. Mm-hmm. And that could be at 200,000 rather than $1 million. It's just like, that's the goal. It's hard because I know I need to put out an episode every single week. So I don't really structure my goals in that way. It's like, I know what I'm trying to achieve. Like, I go out and try as hard as I can. It could be a male thing. Like, I'm just out there doing things without thinking, but just trying to, maybe I should think about that a bit more now that you've asked it. Structure my goals a little bit more.
Because I think, I'm a very goal-oriented person, and I face this dilemma where your overarching goal. I think that is very clear, your purpose, whatnot. And then it's the minute things that have to happen. And then years can pass by, and you're like, where did all of that time go?
Yeah.
What is it? What is the outcome? Sometimes I think it's very easy to set large goals for us because it almost feels like they might be so unattainable that time will pass and you're like, oh, that's right, I've still got that goal that I'm trying to achieve in my life. Is it helpful, and I guess this is a question for myself too and everyone else, is it helpful to say, okay, let's take our big goal in life and break it down into little bite-sized pieces of, just like in training, do you expect someone to run a marathon next week? No. Do you expect them to be able to run a kilometre? Yeah, that's really achievable. And then once you hit that, 1.1, 1.5. So I do wonder, and for myself, I wonder, how can we structure our big, ambitious, bold goals and take our little bite-sized pieces?
Yeah, good question.
And be accountable for that.
I think I find it very easy within the gym and strength training, endurance, all that sort of stuff, because it's like, yeah, you got a kilometre, you want to run a kilometre, you go and run a kilometre. Life just tends to throw big curveballs at you all the time. So you think you're running the kilometre and then it's like pushes over and you've got to get back up and keep going, and then that kilometre turns into 5 and then you're like, oh, I thought I was near the end. So I always find it hard. Like, I say my goal is like make $1 million, but like I don't know what it looks like in between, and I can't, like, for me, my brain, I can't structure that into, okay, do this and this, because again, like if we're talking about podcasting, like I've changed my mind on how I want to do this so many times. Like, I feel like this is the right way of doing it now, but again, I might get another 100 episodes in and go, oh, like I want to pivot again. And will that stop me from achieving that goal? But then, like, do you want to do something that's just you don't really like doing to achieve that goal, or do you want to not necessarily get close to that goal, but do something you like doing? So that's something I battle with all the time as well.
Have you, and this is for my personal curiosity, and you can feel free to leave this out, have you explored the realm of mentors? Or, because we were talking before about having like-minded people around you, whether that's other podcasters who might have a bit more experience and wisdom to share with you, or having mentors who are very intentional about, here's the goal and here's how we're going to get you there. Is that something that you've explored?
More recently, yeah. And it definitely helps. But again, it's hard because, like, although you got a mentor and you say this is what you want to do, they may have done something similar, but it's not exactly how you want to do it. So I think, again, you've got to be careful of, what advice you take and how you apply it to yourself. Again, just like podcasting, you might try it, see what you like, see the outcome, whether you like it or not, maybe move on.
And everyone comes from such a different place in life and have different perspectives that one shoe doesn't fit all.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay, here are some more technical questions.
Go.
Short form versus long form. What do you find gains more traction?
Yeah, obviously short form does, because you can get a lot, like, you know, I'll post one reel across YouTube Shorts, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and it could get, you know, 1,000 views compared to one podcast that only gets 1,000, 10,000 views on the short form and 1,000 on the, but again, it's quality. Like I like long form because it's quality. Like if somebody's still here almost an hour and a half in, you know they're getting a lot. We've rambled a bit, but it's still like they're getting out like quality out of it rather than a 30-second clip that they're just going to double tap and then scroll to the next one. They're not really going to stop and go, yeah, I agree with that. Or, you know what I mean? Like it's just on to the next. So the focus is long form. I like long form. It's what I do. It's just I know that I can get more people onto the long form with the short form. So I will always do the short form for the long form.
So in terms of, and this is more technical, you mentioned that your short form goes on to say TikTok, Instagram, YouTube Shorts, etc. Do you use a centralized platform to upload all of that, or is it each platform requires?
Yeah, I've tried the centralized one where it pushes out to all. I don't know if this is my theory. I don't think the individual apps like that.
Okay.
And they keep the views and they repress the views.
Really?
Again, it's just my experience.
Okay.
I don't know if that's an actual thing.
Sure.
But when I go on it individually and edit it takes a long time. But when I jump on a TikTok, edit the video on TikTok, put the caption on TikTok, and then do the same for Instagram, like in the app, editing, all that sort of stuff in the app, they just seem to get more views. So I do it that way. It's a little bit longer, takes a bit more effort, but like if you're putting in the effort, you might as well put in the effort rather than just relying on that one central one. And again, whether the apps actually repress the views and likes and all that sort of stuff and the engagement.
For debate.
Yeah.
So when you first, as a newcomer or someone starting, how much time did you dedicate and how much time would you recommend dedicating to whether it's a podcast or creating content? And over time, how has that changed and what's your routine look like now?
Yeah. So for me, it's gotten more and more over time. So the better I got at podcasting, the easier it's got at editing and all that sort of stuff. So the more time I could put in, and like now, like I'm getting more guests on, I want to put more time and effort in. So, you know, this episode does better for you, for me. So, as your podcast gets better, I think you should put more time and effort into it. But how much time you should put into it is up to you. Like, you know, how much time have you got to put in it? More is always better, but not necessarily necessary. So, yeah.
For someone who is just starting off, realistically, how many, say, hours in a week, if you wanted to pump out one episode, what does that look like?
I'd probably dedicate, if you're just doing this, say, if you work 9 to 5, 5 days a week, most people do. I know we don't, but like most people do. I'd just probably spend like half a day on the weekend, either Saturday or Sunday.
Which is totally achievable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd do that. Yeah. Just see if you like it doing that. And I think it's doing it on the weekend is a good way to see if you actually want to do it. Because if you go, okay, Saturday morning I'm going to do this, but then your friend's like, hey, do this, come out, do this. And you're like, yeah, okay, that sounds better than podcasting. You know, you probably don't want to actually podcast. So, but if you say, nah, I'm doing this podcast thing, you're like, your friends will be like, oh, he's serious about this podcast thing. Go and do that podcast thing. Like, so you know you're serious if, you know, all those other things get pushed aside and you want a podcast. So I'd try it on the weekend.
That's good advice. Thank you. I might take that advice. How much time goes into planning? So writing executing and editing for you now compared to when you first started?
I'm probably spending about 8 hours a week doing all that. In saying that, AI is definitely helping a lot. So I can put the transcript. So when I get back to my room, I put all this into a file on my computer, and then I upload all those files into Premiere Pro. I edit on Premiere Pro, cut it all up, sync it all up. So if everybody's wondering, I'll actually do that in the vlog that goes along with this, so you can actually see my process. But from that, I can get the transcript, and I get the transcript, put that into an AI, and then myself and the AI will chat about the transcript.
Oh, I'd love to see that.
And it's just like, well, what points of interest are there? And it's like, well, this, you know, you spoke about this at this point. I can use that timestamp to then use that to cut out for a reel. I can use that as a post. I just say, hey, can you write me an Instagram post for that? And it writes me an Instagram post. So then I've got the Instagram post, plus I would know where to get the reel from the bigger video. So AI has made that a lot easier. And then the more you work for AI, the more it understands you. Like, it just creates a faster process. So, yeah.
Have you tried all the different AI platforms? There's like ChatGPT, I think Google came out with one.
Claude and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. I don't care enough to try them all. I just use ChatGPT. I know Claude's meant to be more like a human type thing, but yeah.
I'd love to see the process.
Yeah.
Are you including that in?
Yep.
Amazing.
So yeah, and then from there, like obviously now as well, I'm reaching out to a lot more guests. So there's a lot more of writing, you know, invites to come on and all that sort of stuff, bit of back and forth, emails, texts, all that sort of thing about trying to get people on as well. So that takes up a few hours as well. Okay. So just on the whole, like my process of things, yeah, I'm going to show a video at the end on how to edit and how I do it all. But I think it's important that you find like how you do things. Like I use Premiere Pro, but it's very expensive. It's probably the top of the range. Like you can use CapCut and that sort of thing. I think it's just find what platforms, like what ways, what things work for you. Like there's AI where you can upload a video, like a long form video now, and it pumps out a bunch of like reels.
Really?
Yeah. So it'll go through the video and find like the words that are trending, and cut that, you know, half an hour video into 30-second reels that it thinks will be trending.
Right. That's so interesting.
It doesn't do the best job all the time. Sometimes it makes no sense, like because it'll chop and change to try and get a trending video. But yeah, so there's all that sort of stuff out there. Like again, you just find what works best for you.
I think that's interesting because we can only be so objective towards our own content, and I find that myself when I'm uploading content, I'm like, oh, but all of this is important, but realistically how much of it is important? So even though, like you say, sometimes it doesn't make sense, at least it might give you a bit of perspective of what maybe externally might be important, because it's so hard to be objective about yourself. So on to that last question, what are some of the most common technical mistakes that one might face when starting this journey?
Like the obvious, like not charging things, like I've said. It always sucks when you sit down to record and something's not charged, or you know you haven't got the SD card and a camera, that sort of thing. So just making sure that you got your setup right. But it just comes back to your processes. Like I just find like when I get back, everything goes on charge. I take all the SDs out, upload all the videos from there to the computer, and then put the SDs back in my little thing on the side so I know where to get them for next time. But again, that's just processes that you learn, you stuff up over time and you get better at. Backing everything up, like, so when I take all the audio, the videos, all that sort of stuff back to my computer, I put it on the iCloud. So I use Apple for everything, so it goes on the cloud, because you don't want to lose it. Because if you lose it, it's gone. So I always have a backup. Obviously, once it's already edited, uploaded to YouTube and to, I suppose we haven't really spoke about hosting podcasts, have we? We'll touch on that before we finish.
Oh, and Spotify.
Yeah. So once it's uploaded everywhere, and it can't really disappear.
Do you archive the raw footage once it's uploaded?
I do. So that's all on my cloud, but I'm like, do I really need to keep my 100th episode? Probably not. Like, I'm not really going to reuse that for any reason. If I need it, it's already on YouTube or Spotify. So once it's up, I don't think you need to keep it, but I think that's just up to you whether you want to or not. So for hosting, obviously YouTube, you just upload it to YouTube and there's just a little link to say, a little thing that you click to say this is a podcast. So YouTube have their own podcasting thing, hosting platform, YouTube Music. So it goes on to YouTube Music. No one uses it. So, so it uploads as a video on YouTube and as a podcast on YouTube Music.
Okay.
But I use Buzzsprout. I'll put it in the link in the descriptions. So you upload the audio to Buzzsprout and Buzzsprout pushes it out to every podcasting platform. So Spotify, Apple, Apple Podcast, any other podcasting platform that you can think of where it's audio only, Buzzsprout pushes it out to there. That's very handy to have.
Have you tried Spotify's video podcast?
Yeah, so I now upload the videos to podcasts. So that you have to do separately. It's a bit of a process. It's not too bad. So Buzzsprout pushes the audio out to all of them, including Spotify, but then I need to log into Spotify to upload the video.
Ah, okay. Do you find that gains better traction than just audio?
No, not on Spotify. Again, from what I've experienced, no.
Okay.
For some reason, most of my listeners, I had a look at this yesterday or this morning, where my stats are. Most of my people listening to the podcast are on Apple, not Spotify.
Oh,
so
okay.
Apple Podcast.
Do you think that has to do with your genre or
No, I don't know. I think it's just, I just think it's where most of my audience listen. I think it's about 40%, and then the rest is just broken up over Spotify and then a couple of other little ones. So I don't think that matters, to be honest. Just wherever people listening, they're listening. Obviously, I try and push people more towards YouTube because eventually you can get paid for the views and the ads and all that sort of stuff. So, yeah. YouTube gives you a lot more stats, which is also handy, and why it's good to push people towards YouTube, because you just see how many people download an episode from Spotify. You don't know how long they've listened for. You don't know if they paused and then come back, that sort of thing.
Okay.
Where YouTube's a lot more in depth. You can see how long people listen for, if they drop off, if they come back and start listening. So there's a lot more analytics behind YouTube.
And I imagine the monetization is better.
Yeah. I don't know if Spotify pay podcasters. I
think they sign deals with podcasters.
You need to be pretty big to get some deals from them, but I guess that would be a good goal to have as well.
Thank you for all of your insight and information.
Thanks for coming on. This has
Very
been good.
handy.
Yeah.
I've had a great time.
Me too. We'll have to wait for your podcast to come out.
We'll have you on as a guest, talk about your experiences in life.
Definitely. Where can people find you?
I did not expect that question. Where can people find me? Right now, I don't really have anywhere for anyone to find me.
Okay.
Wait, are you going to have to edit this? Because I'm processing and thinking right now, because obviously we talk about intentions. Okay, where can people find me? Currently, you can only find me on Instagram, Whitney.untethered. And in the future, you may find me on Spotify and YouTube and all of these other platforms we've been discussing.
Well, we will find you on YouTube.
You will.
Spotify.
Thank you.
If you're listening and you're wondering about all the other stuff we're talking about, again, there's a vlog to go with this, the setup of this room, and then I will add in the editing of my content so you can all see that as well. Thanks, everybody, and we'll talk to you again very soon. Bye.